The conference room went silent, dead silent, the kind of silence where you can hear the air conditioning hum and someone's stomach growl 3 chairs down. On the projector screen, red error messages cascaded like a waterfall. $120 million worth of infrastructure completely dark. Our chief executive officer, Richard Lawson, stood at the head of the table, his knuckles white as he gripped his phone. He had been on a call with our largest client, Henderson Equity Group, trying to explain why their $47 million in pending trades had vanished into the digital void. "Get me answers," Richard said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Right now." Jason Pierce, our vice president of operations, fumbled with his laptop, sweat beading on his forehead. The system it crashed. All 3 redundancies failed simultaneously. That is not supposed to be possible, and yet it happened. Richard turned to the young consultant sitting across the table, the one who had been so confident 2 weeks ago. "Justin, you said this optimization would improve efficiency by 40%. You said it was routine." Justin's face had gone pale. "It was standard procedure. We have done this at a dozen other companies. I do not understand why. I do not pay you to not understand." Richard's hand trembled as he scrolled through his phone, reading something that made his jaw tight. The incident log shows the cascade started at 9:58 in the evening. First warning came in at 8:47. Who was monitoring? Silence. Who was supposed to be monitoring our systems? Jason cleared his throat. "The automated artificial intelligence system Justin's team installed. It is supposed to catch and resolve issues before they escalate. Supposed to it." Richard set his phone down slowly, deliberately. "And where is this artificial intelligence now?" "The monitoring system was part of what crashed, sir." Richard closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, there was something cold there I had never seen before. "Jason, pull up the change authorization for this optimization project." "Sir, I do not think that is—" "Pull it up now." Jason's fingers shook as he navigated through files on his laptop. The projector switched from error messages to a document, a memo dated 3 weeks prior. "Read the section about staff oversight," Richard said. Jason's voice cracked as he read. "Due to budget optimization initiatives, overtime authorization for legacy information technology staff has been restricted. Modern automated systems will provide adequate monitoring coverage." "Legacy staff," Richard repeated. "Who wrote that language?" "I did, sir, but it—" The color drained from Jason's face. "That was a budget decision. We needed to cut costs. And with the new automation—" "What is Daniel's phone number?" Someone from Information Technology, Mark Davis, spoke up from the corner. "He is not answering, sir. We have been calling for an hour." Mark shifted uncomfortably. "Because it is 10:47 in the evening, sir, and his overtime was cut. He is following policy." The room went silent again, but this time it was different. This was the silence of realization, of consequences arriving right on schedule. Richard picked up his phone, jaw clenched. "Get me his number and Jason." He looked up, his gaze like ice. "You better pray he answers, because if he does not, I am calling the board, and you are going to explain to them personally why we are facing the biggest system failure in company history the same week you cut our best systems administrator's pay and called him outdated." Someone's phone buzzed. Mark checked his screen, his face showing relief. "He responded to my text. He says he needs written overtime approval before he can log in." "Send it," Richard snapped. "I did, sir. It has to go through human resources for final processing. Protocol." Jason clicked through screens. The projector displayed a digital signature line. "Approved by Jason Pierce, Vice President of Operations." Justification. "Modernization of legacy systems eliminates need for after-hours manual intervention." Richard stared at that screen, at Jason's signature, at the justification that had aged like milk. When he finally spoke, his voice could have frozen nitrogen. "When Daniel fixes this, and he will fix this because he is a professional, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about the difference between innovation and incompetence." Justin tried to slip toward the door. "Sir, if you do not need me anymore." At 10:52 in the evening, confirmation came through. Daniel Vance had been officially approved for emergency overtime. The room waited, barely breathing, for him to log in and save us all from Jason's disaster. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me back up 12 hours to when this whole disaster started brewing, and let me introduce you to the man who was about to teach an entire company what outdated really means. My name is Daniel Vance, and I am a senior systems administrator at Vanguard Financial Solutions. 18 years I have been with this company. 18 years of keeping servers running, databases humming, and systems operational around the clock. I started here when I was 30, eager and idealistic. Now I am 48, married to Sarah, and we have 2 kids, Jacob, who is 12, and Chloe, who is 9. My job is not glamorous. Nobody throws parties for the person who keeps the lights on, but it is essential, and I am damn good at it. I should have known right then. Whenever they use 3 words where one would do, something is about to hit the fan. Effective immediately, all overtime hours require pre-approval from departmental leadership. Due to budget optimization initiatives, legacy staff compensation packages are being reviewed for market alignment. Legacy staff. That is what they called me. 18 years of 60-hour weeks, of answering calls at 2 in the morning, of canceling family dinners because a server crashed, and now I am legacy staff. His door was open. He was doing bicep curls with one of those adjustable dumbbells executives keep in their offices to feel productive. "Jason, got a minute?" He set down the weight, not even breaking a sweat. "Daniel, right? From information technology." "Yeah, from information technology. I wanted to ask about this overtime policy change." He smiled, the kind of smile that does not reach the eyes. "Oh, that. Yeah, we are trimming some fat, getting lean. You understand, it is just business. The systems I manage run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Financial markets do not close. If something breaks at 8 in the evening, I cannot just leave it until morning." There it was. Outdated. I have been called a lot of things in my career, but never outdated. Not when I was the one who migrated our entire database architecture 2 years ago. Not when I designed the failover systems that had kept us running through 3 different regional power outages. "I see," I said, keeping my voice level. "So the overtime cut is permanent. Unless there is a pre-approved emergency. But honestly, if we are having that many emergencies, maybe we need to look at who is managing these systems." I went back to my desk. My hands were not shaking, but they wanted to it. I had given this company 18 years. I had missed Jacob's first steps because I was in the server room fixing a storage array. I had worked through Chloe's birthday party via laptop from a corner of the bowling alley. Sarah and I had postponed vacations, anniversary dinners, quiet weekends, all because Vanguard Financial Solutions needed me. And now I was outdated. I looked at the clock, 9:47 in the morning. I opened my calendar and started canceling my monitoring schedules. Every automated check I had set up to run after hour saw Euro gone. Every alert I had configured to ping my phone outside business hour Euros disabled. The early warning systems I had built to catch problems before they became catastrophe saw Euros switched off. If they wanted me working 9 to 5, I would work 9 to 5, not a minute more. They cut overtime, called us outdated. Mark's face went through several expressions before settling on resigned anger. "Jason, who else? The man is going to run this place into the ground. You know he tried to tell me we should move our core transaction systems to a public server? Like we are running a blog, not a financial institution." I spent the rest of that Tuesday documenting everything. Every system I managed, every custom script I had written, every workaround I had implemented over the years. I did not do it out of spite. I did it because I am a professional. If something went wrong and I was not available, someone would need to know how to fix it. But I also made sure to note the monitoring schedules. Previously monitored 24 hours a day, now covered only during business hours per new overtime policy. "They let you go," she said softly. "Worse, they let me know I am not worth what they are paying me." She pulled me into a hug. Sarah works in administration at a local school. She understands the value of experience, of knowing how a system breathes. "What are you going to do? You sure that is wise?" I pulled back and looked at her. They called me outdated, Sarah, after 18 years. So they are going to find out real quick how outdated I am. The following Tuesday, Jason Pierce called a department meeting in the main conference room on the 4th floor of Vanguard Financial Solutions. I took a seat near the back next to Mark Davis, my colleague of 7 years, who managed our network infrastructure. Jason stood at the front, projecting an air of supreme confidence. He possessed the manic energy that only newly hired executives seem to have. Beside him stood a young man who looked like he had graduated college about 15 minutes ago. Mark leaned over and whispered, "Does he actually know what those words mean, or did he just swallow a management textbook?" I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. "Probably the latter," I murmured back. Jason clicked his remote, displaying a slide filled with buzzwords. To future-proof our organization, we are bringing in outside expertise. I want to introduce Justin from Apex Digital Solutions. Justin will assess our infrastructure and implement optimizations across the board. I felt my jaw clench. Those protocols catch problems before they cascade into catastrophic failures, I said, keeping my voice level. Last year alone, they prevented 4 major outages that would have cost the firm millions. Justin waved a hand dismissively. Right, but with modern automated monitoring, you do not need human intervention. The system simply fixes itself. There is no such thing as a system fixes itself without understanding the underlying architecture, I countered, looking directly at Jason. Will these consultants have access to our production environment? And they will be working during regular business hours, I asked. Jason's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Mostly yes. Why do you ask? Since you recently eliminated our overtime and explicitly stated that we are not to work outside of regular business hours, I want to make sure any consultant work happens when internal staff are available to supervise, especially if they are making changes to the transaction processing cluster. Jason's jaw tightened. We will cross that bridge when we come to it. Justin's team will handle the migration starting next week. It should take about 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Mark blurted out, looking horrified. To overhaul our entire infrastructure? We are not overhauling, we are optimizing, Justin corrected him. Trust me. I have done this a dozen times. I wanted to ask where those dozen companies were now, but I held my tongue. Jason had clearly made up his mind, and at Vanguard Financial Solutions, a vice president of operations generally got what they wanted, regardless of the potential consequences. After the meeting, I caught up with Mark in the break room. He looked as anxious as I felt. They are going to mess with the transaction processing cluster, Mark said, pouring a cup of coffee. I tried to tell Jason it has deep dependencies they need to account for, but Justin insisted their automation handles it. Does it? I asked. I have no clue, Mark sighed. They will not let me see their configurations. They claim it is proprietary. I shook my head, feeling a knot form in my stomach. The transaction processing cluster was the beating heart of Vanguard Financial Solutions. It handled every single trade and financial movement through the firm. More importantly, it was governed by strict federal regulations. I decided to confront Justin directly. I found him in the server room, typing on his laptop. Justin, we need to talk about the transaction cluster, I said. He did not look up from his screen. I am busy optimizing the redundancy pathways, Daniel. What is it? If you touch the redundancy pathways, you need to be aware of the Securities and Exchange Commission regulations, I told him firmly. Specifically, Rule 17 of 4. It mandates strict data integrity and record-keeping for financial institutions. We have a triple verification pipeline built into the system to ensure compliance. If you remove it, or if your automation bypasses it, you will put the company in direct violation of federal law. We are talking about massive fines and potential fraud investigations. Justin finally looked up, offering a condescending smirk. Daniel, you are thinking like legacy staff. You are bogged down by old ways of doing things. Our automated pipeline streamlines verification without the need for cumbersome triple checks. It is perfectly safe and it saves processing time. It is not about processing time, it is about federal compliance, I insisted, my voice rising slightly. You cannot streamline a legally mandated verification process. If a transaction fails to verify properly, the entire cluster is programmed to shut down to prevent illegal trades from executing. It will not fail, Justin said, turning back to his laptop. We have run simulations. Now, if you will excuse me, I have actual work to finish. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the back of his head. I had given 18 years to this company. I had built those systems from the ground up, nursing them through market crashes, power outages, and hardware failures. Now, I was being dismissed by a kid who thought a simulation was the real world. That evening, I went home and told my wife, Sarah, everything. We sat at the kitchen table after Jacob and Chloe had gone to bed. So, they are just going to let this kid tear apart the systems you built? Sarah asked, her brow furrowed in concern. Pretty much, I sighed, rubbing my temples. Jason called me outdated staff in his memo. They cut my overtime. They made it perfectly clear they do not value my expertise. Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. What are you going to do? Exactly what Jason told me to do, I said, a slow realization dawning on me. The memo explicitly restricted overtime and instructed legacy staff to rely on the new automated systems. So, that is what I am going to do. I will work my standard 9 to 5 shift. I am going to log in at 8 in the morning and log out at exactly 5 in the evening. If something breaks after hours, it is not my problem anymore. They can rely on Justin and his magical automation. Sarah studied my face for a moment, then nodded slowly. Are you sure about this? Daniel, you have always been the one to fix things. I am sure, I told her, feeling a strange sense of liberation wash over me. For 18 years, I have sacrificed our family time for that company. I missed Jacob's first steps because I was fixing a storage array. I worked through Chloe's birthday party from a corner of a bowling alley. I am done being taken for granted. If Jason wants to run the department into the ground, I will let him. I will follow his new policy to the letter. The next morning, I arrived at work at 8 o'clock sharp. I spent the day documenting my systems, making sure everything was properly noted, just in case something went terribly wrong. I carefully backed up all the custom scripts I had written over the past 18 years. I did this not out of spite, but because I am a professional. But when the clock struck 5, I did something I had not done in 18 years. I closed my laptop, packed my leather bag, and walked out the door without looking back. No checking emails on the train ride home, no keeping my phone volume on high just in case a server went down. I was officially off the clock. The consequences of Jason's hasty modernization were no longer my responsibility. Thursday afternoon arrived, and the atmosphere in the server room felt heavy, like the calm right before a thunderstorm. I spent the last few hours of my shift documenting everything. Every system I managed, every custom script I had written, every workaround I had implemented over my 18 years at Vanguard Financial Solutions. I did not do it out of spite. I did it because I am a professional. If something went wrong, someone would need to know how to fix it. I also noted the monitoring schedules. Previously monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now covered only during business hours per the new overtime policy. When the clock on my wall hit 4:45, I started shutting down my dashboards. I closed my monitoring screens, set my status to offline, and packed my bag. Mark Davis watched me with awe. He had been with the company for 7 years and handled our network infrastructure. "You are really doing it," Mark whispered. "They set the policy, Mark." "I am following it," I replied, grabbing my jacket. "What about the overnight batch processes?" "They are automated, so they should be fine. And if they are not, well, that is a tomorrow problem. A tomorrow during business hours problem." I walked out of that building at exactly 5 o'clock, and it felt like a quiet rebellion. 18 years of staying late, of being always on, and now I was just leaving. The week passed quietly. I kept waiting for some crisis that would justify Jason Pierce's paranoia, but the systems I had built were solid. But Justin and his team of consultants had been messing with the transaction processing cluster all week. Mark tried to tell them it had dependencies, but Justin brushed him off. Thursday afternoon, one of the older backup systems started throwing warnings. It was minor stuff, the kind of thing my monitoring would have caught and auto-corrected. But my monitoring was disabled and Justin's automation ignored it. I noticed it out of habit. I almost filed a ticket, then stopped. It was exactly 4:30. 30 minutes until I went home, and this was exactly the kind of thing that would have required me to stay late. I documented the warning in the system, and at exactly 5 o'clock I left. That night, I made dinner with Sarah and the kids. We did this thing where everyone contributes one ingredient, and we try to make a meal out of it. Jacob picked chicken, Chloe picked strawberries, Sarah picked rice, and I picked bell peppers. The final dish was highly questionable, but we laughed more than we had in weeks. At 8:47 in the evening, my phone buzzed. Urgent, system alert on the backup cluster. I set the phone down and went back to helping Chloe with her math homework. At 9:15, another email arrived. Critical, multiple system warnings. Sarah noticed my hesitation. "You are not going to check that?" she asked. "Not my problem after 5 o'clock." "New policy," I said, smiling tightly. At 9:58, my phone started ringing. It was Mark. I let it ring out. 5 minutes later, at 10 o'clock, another call came through from Jason Pierce. I declined it. Sarah watched me, her expression a mix of concern and understanding. "Daniel," she started softly. "They called me outdated, Sarah," I interrupted, my voice thick with frustration. "They cut my overtime. They brought in consultants who will not listen to a single word I say. Whatever is happening right now, they have got Justin to fix it." At 10:17, a text from Mark lit up my screen. The transaction system was down, both primary and backup. Justin's system could not diagnose it. Jason was losing his mind. The CEO was there. It was bad. I stared at that text for a long moment. 18 years of conditioning told me to jump in and fix it. That is what I had always done. But 18 years of loyalty had gotten my compensation slashed. I simply sat there, watching the screen dim. Then came the voicemail from Jason. He sounded frantic, breathless, completely stripped of his arrogant swagger. I played it on speaker. "Daniel, please, you need to log in. The transaction processing cluster just failed. Everything is dark. We have $120 million in pending transactions suspended in limbo. The CEO is standing right next to me." Justin said he just streamlined the redundancy protocols. He removed the triple verification on the single operations to make things run faster. My blood ran cold. I paused the voicemail and looked at Sarah. "He removed the triple verification," I whispered. The sheer magnitude of the stupidity washing over me. Financial regulations mandate triple verification on transactions over certain thresholds. Specifically, Securities and Exchange Commission Rule 17-4 dictates strict record-keeping and data integrity mandates for financial institutions. Justin did not just streamline a process. By disabling those redundant verifications, he blatantly violated Securities and Exchange Commission Rule 17-4. The moment the system detected the compliance violation, it did exactly what it was programmed to do. It shut down. Primary, backup, and failover, all programmed to freeze rather than process illegal transactions and expose the company to federal fraud investigations and massive fines. Justin had broken federal law. I hit play on the voicemail again. "Daniel, please," Jason begged, his voice cracking. "I know we have had our differences, but you have to help us. If we roll back the changes, we lose every pending transaction. We lose $50 million instantly. We will be facing federal fraud investigations. The fines alone will bankrupt Vanguard Financial Solutions. Please, Daniel, log in. I am begging you." I deleted the voicemail and set the phone on the table. The silence in the kitchen was deafening. Sarah reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. "What are you going to do?" she asked quietly. "Exactly what I was told to do," I said, my voice steady, staring at the blank screen of my phone. "I am going to wait for proper written authorization." My phone vibrated on the kitchen island at precisely 17 minutes past 10 o'clock. The text from Mark Davis, my colleague in network infrastructure, was frantic. The transaction processing system was completely down. Justin's monitoring failed to diagnose the root cause, and Jason was losing his mind. I stared at the screen. For 18 years, my immediate instinct would have been to connect to the secure network and fix the issue. But 18 years of loyalty had recently earned me a pay cut and a memo from Jason Pierce labeling me as outdated staff. I typed my reply carefully. "Overtime requires pre-approval. Send me the official Human Resources authorization form, and I will log in." At 31 minutes past 10, the approval form arrived. Jason had authorized it for critical system failure. At 44 minutes past 10, Human Resources confirmed it. Everything was perfectly by the book. I opened my laptop. The main system status dashboard looked like a catastrophic holiday tree. Crimson error alerts flashed everywhere. The absolute beating heart that handled every single financial movement through Vanguard Financial Solutions was paralyzed. My phone rang loudly. "Daniel, thank God." Jason breathed into the receiver, his voice tight with panic. "We need you in the system right now. We have $50 million in pending client transactions sitting in absolute limbo. Richard Lawson is standing right next to me, and if we do not fix this immediately, we are finished." Walk me through exactly what Justin did, I demanded. Jason stammered and put Justin on the line. Justin sounded significantly less confident than he had during his flashy presentation. We consolidated the redundancy protocols. We streamlined the process into a single verification pipeline monitored by our artificial intelligence. I let out a deep breath. You removed the triple verification process. It was federally required. SEC Rule 17(4) mandates strict record-keeping verifications on transactions over certain thresholds. You made every single pending transaction illegal. The primary backup and failover servers are programmed to freeze rather than process illegal trades. You exposed the company to federal fraud investigations. We just need to roll back the configuration changes, Justin stammered. You cannot roll back, I said flatly. If you initiate a rollback right now, those $50 million in limbo disappear into the void. You would have to manually recreate every single trade. So, what do we do? Jason pleaded. I need to manually rebuild the SEC-compliant verification pipeline, I explained. I have to restore the triple verification protocol without disrupting the active transaction queue. How long will that take? Jason asked. Maybe 3 or 4 hours. The markets open in Tokyo in 2 hours. Then you should not have allowed an outside consultant to dismantle a federal compliance system he did not understand, I replied coldly. Do not interrupt me. I will send a message when the job is done. My wife, Sarah, walked into the home office just before midnight. The rest of the house was perfectly quiet. Jacob and Chloe were fast asleep in their rooms, entirely unaware of the corporate catastrophe unfolding on my monitors. She placed a steaming mug of black coffee on my desk, the dark liquid offering a sharp, familiar aroma that grounded me in the moment. Do you need anything else, Daniel? She asked softly. Just time, I murmured, my eyes fixed firmly on the endless scrolling lines of code that dictated Vanguard Financial Solutions' fate. You are incredibly good at this, you know, Sarah said softly, resting a warm hand on my tense shoulder. They are incredibly lucky to have you working here. They called me outdated, I replied bitterly, the memory of Jason's arrogant memo flashing in my mind like a fresh wound. Then they are absolute fools, she said, squeezing my shoulder reassuringly before stepping quietly out of the room to let me work. I smiled despite the heavy exhaustion creeping into my bones and got down to work. Rebuilding a secure verification pipeline within a live financial environment is remarkably similar to performing open-heart surgery on a moving train. Every single component is deeply connected to dozens of other fragile systems, requiring absolute precision to prevent a catastrophic collapse. I began with the failover system. I meticulously restored the verification protocols and confirmed that the compliance markers were properly flagged according to SEC Rule 17(4). It took an entire hour just to stabilize that one server. The backup system was next. I had to carefully unwind everything Justin's automated tools had altered without triggering additional security lockdowns. By 38 minutes past 1 o'clock in the morning, the backup system was confirmed operational. That left the primary system, which handled 90% of our daily transaction volume. Justin's artificial intelligence had modified settings everywhere, desperately attempting to optimize pathways that never needed optimizing. I located my original configuration stored securely in my personal archived backups. These were the backups I had kept despite the new company policy dictating we only needed 30 days of history. At 43 minutes past 2 o'clock, I hit a massive roadblock. One of Justin's automated changes had completely overwritten a custom script I had written 5 years ago. Without it, anything involving foreign currency conversion would fail the compliance checks. I did not have a backup of that specific script. I had no choice but to rewrite it entirely from memory. I typed furiously, generating over 300 lines of complex code, rebuilding intricate logic I had not looked at in over 60 months. At 47 minutes past 3 o'clock, the script was finished. I integrated it directly into the pipeline and held my breath. Green lights cascaded down my screen. Clean compliance markers registered across the board. I brought the primary system fully online at 52 minutes past 3 o'clock. I sat back and watched as $50 million in pending client transactions processed in exactly the right order, bearing exactly the right timestamps to satisfy the federal regulators. At exactly 4 o'clock in the morning, I drafted a single text message to Richard Lawson, the CEO. Systems are fully operational. All pending transactions have been securely processed in accordance with federal compliance. Zero data loss. I slept until noon the next day. Sarah kept the kids quiet, bless her it. When I stumbled into the kitchen, there was fresh coffee and a note. You are amazing. Love you. My phone had 47 unread messages. I ignored them, drank my coffee, and tried to figure out how I felt. Being proven right does not always feel good. I saved the day, showing exactly how outdated I was, but I still had to fix their mess. Because if I had not, Vanguard Financial Solutions and our clients would have suffered most. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rang. Richard Lawson, our chief executive officer. I considered not answering. But Richard had always been decent to me. He came up through financial analysis. Daniel, did you get some rest? He asked. A few hours. I am fine. I am calling to apologize and ask you to come in Monday for a meeting. Just you, me, and human resources. My stomach tightened. Am I being let go? What? No, the exact opposite. Daniel, I spent the last 8 hours reviewing the incident. Justin's changes were not authorized by anyone who understood the systems. Jason gave him carte blanche, and I found the memo about the overtime cuts, the one that called senior information technology staff outdated. Ah, that memo never crossed my desk. If it had, it never would have been approved. You have been with us 18 years. Your performance reviews are flawless. You prevented massive problems, and we thanked you by insulting your expertise. Monday, we discussed making this right. I wanted to call to say thank you. That evening, Sarah and I sat on the back porch. Are you going to quit? She asked. I do not know. Part of me wants to walk away. The other part remembers that I built those systems. Mark did not call me outdated. That was Jason. What happens to Jason? If Richard is smart, Jason will be gone. I found out Sunday night. Company-wide email from Richard. Effective immediately, Jason Pierce has been relieved of his duties as Vice President of Operations. Corporate speak for fired. A follow-up email came 20 minutes later. Daniel Vance is appointed Acting Director of Operations. I read it 3 times. Mark called immediately. Did you see? Acting Director. Daniel, that is amazing. It is temporary. Still, it is recognition, and it means you can fire Justin. Justin and his consulting team had actually been dismissed Friday night. Monday morning, I walked into the building. Mark met me with coffee. The hero returns. Stop. Seriously, you are a legend. Richard made Jason explain every decision to the executive team. Jason was sweating through his shirt. The meeting was at 10 o'clock. Richard was there with Human Resources and Legal It. Daniel, Human Resources started. First, the overtime situation.